stream the Luna channel. So today's program is I'm going to be teaching you how to make a magic wand. So I created a Facebook event, which hopefully some of you have signed up to, and explained the things that you'd need. So the items you will need for today's workshop is a stick that you really like. It can be one of the 9 sacred woods, which are Hazel, Holly, Oak, Willow, Birch, Rowan, Yew, Alder and Elder. And I'll talk a little bit more about why they're sacred during the workshop. And then you'll need something to make the handle with. Now that can be leather, or I'm going to be using Milliput clay. You could use Fimo, anything that you want to make the handle with. You could use some material. And then any little bits and bobs that you want to add to your wands. I've got some crystals that I'm adding to mine, so anything that you want to add. And you also want an essential oil that you will use to rub into the wand. Then also, just to create the ceremony, to create the process, you're going to need something to represent the earth, fire, air and water. Then you can do the ceremony with me, and some candles and incense just to kind of create the space. So if you want to get those things together, and I am going to light the candles and begin to create this circle. So I'm going to be making a wand today for my goddaughter Nell. So hello Nell, this is for you. I've also made one for myself, so I've kind of, because you have to let the clay dry. So when you're making the wand today, if you have got clay with you, don't worry, we'll do the blessing on it all and make it all magic, and then you can let it dry and then finish the process later on. So I'm going to begin by casting the circle, and to do that I will first of all light the candles, and then I will use this is my kind of travel wand. This is the one that I use for when I'm going out and about. It's quite light and easy to take around with me, and my wonderful friend Ro gave this to me. I absolutely love it. And so this is my kind of trusty one that I use for things. And I'm going to begin by lighting the candles and the incense. And we're going to be going into a ceremony, and so you want to kind of start slowing down your breathing and getting into a kind of concentrated and relaxed state. So now the candles are lit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cleanse the circle, and I'm going to cleanse you as well and cleanse myself. I'll do this with incense, and then I'm going to invite in the different directions and deities, and then I'll begin the process of making the wand. So when I do this, if you would like to join in at home, you can cast the circle with me and do the hand movements, gestures that I do along with me, and then we will work in ceremony to create our wands. So the incense that I'm using, so I have a charcoal that you place in an athame, and once that's begun to heat up, as it has now, I'm using summer solstice incense, which is a really lovely way to I always use the ones that are for the season that we're in the wheel of the year, and it smells divine. place some on the charcoal. It will begin to smoke. I'm just going to light the direction candles. Something else you will want to have with you when you make this, when you do ceremony, is to have a simple feast. So something that you can eat and drink. So I've got some strawberries and raspberries, and I also have some rose tea, which I've blessed. I've done a blessing on the tea. And then for my 4 directions, I've got sea salt for earth, and I've got moon blessed water, which I left out under the full moon last night for the water. I have a candle here for the fire, and then a prayer bowl that I'm going to use for air. That's for the air. So hopefully you now have all the bits and bobs that you need, and we shall begin. I'll begin by cleansing the circle. Cleanse myself, and then if you put your arms out like this, then I will cleanse you too. And the space has been cleansed. I'm going to cast a circle. When I cast the circle, I'm pulling the power down from the cosmos and up through the earth, and they come down and join in my womb space, my sacred bowl, my pelvic bowl, my magic bowl of power, and they spin into this energy until I feel the ball filling up my whole body with power. And then once I've done that, I fill up this circle space, and then I draw a blue line of light in my mind's eye around the circle. And then when I pull it up, I imagine that I'm pulling the light up and over and the light underneath as well. So you don't make a magic circle, you make a magic ball that's protecting you. So that's what I'm going to be doing now. Now I'm going to call in the directions, and you can do this with me. So you take your hands and you place them so they're parallel to the earth. We call in the guardians of the north. The north is the physical world, and the physical world is the world that's out there. It's our bodies, and it's the outer world. And the outer world is quite a scary place at the moment. There's a lot of changes. There's a lot of things going on that we're having to wrap our heads around, and it feels like we're going through a massive shift. And this is exciting, and it's also scary. So in the process of making this magic wand today, we call upon the guardians of the north to give us strength to feel brave and powerful in the physical world. We welcome in the guardians of the north. Welcome. Now you spread your fingers out like this, and you welcome in the guardians of the east. It's air. We welcome in the guardians of the east. The east is air, and air is the wonderful life-giving oxygen that fills our lungs and brings life to this planet. And through the breath in our lungs, we communicate our ideas and our wisdom. And at the moment, things are all changing and shifting so quickly. And those who are able to be light of thought and flexible and full of inspiration are the ones who are going to thrive in a brave new world. So when we create this magic wand today, we want to invoke the power of powerful speech and quick, beautiful, inspiring and transformative thoughts. We welcome in the guardians of the East. Welcome. And then you put your hands into fists like you're a superhero, and you put them up in the air, and you feel the power of fire, which is the South. So we welcome in the guardians of the South. The South is fire. And fire is our passion, and it's our anger, it's our fury, but it's action, it's masculine energy, it's Mars energy. It's what makes us do things, like the combustion engine. It makes things happen. And so we call on all the power of fire for our wands, the ability to make things happen, to create change, to create action, and to fill us with bubbling power and fury, but harnessed fury, so that we can make difference and change, be the change that we want to see in the world. And we feel that down in our pelvic bowl, in our magic bowl of power. We welcome in the guardians of the South. Welcome. And we welcome in the guardians of the West, who are water. And this is our inner world, our deep emotions. We have been living for 2,000 years in a world that is obsessed with the outer, with what you look like, with all these things about being powerful and rich and successful in an outer world way. And little attention has been given to the inner world. We know that we all dream, and yet none of us talk about our dreams and don't give them any credence. And we know that you have to have imagination and creativity to make new things and to be the new thing to then make the money. But where do these beautiful inspirations come from? We used to live in a world where everything was sacred. Everything was sacred. Our inner and outer worlds were one. And when we're children, when we're small, our inner and outer worlds are one. And we're being called right now to bring our inner worlds back into the outer world, to make them one again, so that we can live in a magical place and a beautiful place, full of emotions, where we're not trying to be strong and hard and ignore the depths of the inner world. Anything's possible in the inner world, and we can bring that into the outer world. So we welcome in the guardians of the West, who are going to imbibe our magic wands with power. Welcome. Then we welcome in the goddess, which we do with our left hand. You make a moon shape, crescent moon. Everything that I do and everything that exists is because of she. We live on Earth, Mama Earth, and she definitely exists. We're standing on her, and we are all her children. And for a long time, we've been ignoring her and treating her badly. And if we don't do something about our behaviour soon, she's going to chuck us out. It's the 21st century. We're 21 now. And she's not going to put up with this mess any longer. So it's time for us to begin to pay attention again to the feminine and to have some respect for it and have respect for our planet. And when we make this wand and the power that we're going to imbibe in it, it's in her name and for the power of she and in love of Mother Earth. Welcome. And we welcome in the horned god. And the horned god is the masculine. And we are not trying to do away with the masculine. The masculine is vital. It's the spear throwing straight line. It's direct energy. And look at all of the things that we've achieved with that energy. It's amazing. So we don't want to lose that. But when you incorporate the cyclical as well, the feminine, then we'll eventually become a spiral. And when we become a spiral, we'll be working in balance and harmony with the universe, which works in spirals. We've been spending too long working with just straight lines, and it's been getting us into trouble. We haven't been thinking about where things go and where they come from. And it's time for us to begin to pay attention to the cyclical. But we are not disregarding the masculine. The masculine is important and vital. And when it's not toxic, it's a sexy, beautiful, wonderful, rotting thing. So we welcome in the masculine. Welcome. And because there is always a third way, we welcome in that betwixt the two. This is the slippery, unknown place between the binary oppositions, the right and wrong, the black and white, the us and them, the left and right, masculine and feminine. and this is where the Fool resides. And the Fool can be anything and everything. It's a shapeshifter and transformer. And this reminds us that the world is not black and white. It's technicolor. And that's a brilliant thing. There's always a third way. So we welcome in that betwixt the two. Welcome. So the circle has been cast. Now we will begin our magic. So there's some things that I'm going to do. I like to put some rose cream on my heart space because it helps to open my heart chakra. And this is heart work that we're doing. And if you have some rose oil, maybe you could have put a little bit of a sniff on, anoint yourself. I'm gonna rub this on my heart space, open my heart chakra, fill me with love. And Rose is one of my favourite, she's part of my archetype. My archetypal lineage is that I'm one of the priestesses of Aphrodite. And the rose is the plant of Aphrodite, which is why we give it in love. There's many things to say about the rose, but I will talk about that in another programme, or I will be here all day. But Rose is my ally and I work with her. She helps to calm me and open my heart chakra. And I have some rose tea here as well, which will also be aiding me. And I'm also going to smoke some mugwort. Now, I don't smoke. I've just used the wisdom of licorice, rose and hawthorn to get rid of my asthma. I've always had asthma and I've always been on steroids for my asthma, and I have just managed to wean myself off the steroids and no longer have asthma right in time for coronavirus. So that was perfect timing. So I don't normally smoke and I don't condone smoking, but mugwort helps to open your third eye. It's called the witch's herb, and it used to be the tobacco that we smoked in the UK before we found the tobacco of the Americas, and it's a very powerful herb. Tobacco is actually, the American tobacco is actually thought of as the strongest of all the herb spirits, which is why it has such powerful control over the world. So it's quite interesting when you start to think of plants as actual beings, sentient. For example, there's the argument that we didn't domesticate and learn to farm, that wheat domesticated us and made us farm it. It's now the most abundant living thing on the planet, and it needs us to make that happen. So was it that we domesticated wheat and became farmers, or did the wheat domesticate us and make us grow loads of it? Question. So mugwort is a wonderful herb that helps you to open your third eye and puts you at a slower vibration, and it's the vibration of other plants. It helps you connect with the spirit of plants. And I will be connecting with the wood that I'm working with. So I am going to be smoking a mugwort pipe. Don't go randomly picking mugwort because it's it looks like wormwood and other things that are quite toxic. So we'll do a thing on mugwort. I'll do a video on mugwort and introduce you to mugwort properly. But I'm also spray a little bit of rose spray just to give a little extra edge of rose around the room. I'm a Capricorn, and Capricorns very much enjoy sensory things. Because we're the Earth, we're an Earth sign. We're like kind of anything that's an Earth sign is very much about the senses and the sensual, and so I really enjoy all things taste, smell, fabrics, all of these things. And it's nice to get to know the things that you like, and then you can fill your world with them and fill your outer world with lovely things. I like rose. So I have been in ceremony all weekend, because it was the full moon and it was a Capricorn full moon, so I've been using the power of this full moon. It was also a portal, an eclipse portal that opened on June the 5th. So it's been crazy. We've been going through a crazy time. It's been a big download, because during an eclipse portal, all of the versions of yourself in all the parallel universes and past lives and all the things all come into alignment, and you suddenly get this big download from each other, which has been amazing. And I'm just beginning, I'm not even going to be able to unpick it for a long time, but I am already starting to see some of the things that are going to come from it when I think of what's happened since June the 5th and how my life's completely changed. I work in theatre, but now I don't, and probably won't be for a while. And so doing this work has all come about in the last few months. So that's been a huge shift and download. And yeah, many things. I'm going on a big pilgrimage in September, where I'm going to walk from one end of the UK to the other, along the St Michael and St Mary's ley lines, and they're the masculine and feminine. And this is about this cyclical, trying to encourage and support this journey into cyclical time, and balance between the binary oppositions. So that's what I'm doing, is the intention of the pilgrimage. And I enjoy doing these like live stream things, because it's a way of sharing some of this wisdom and knowledge with a wider world. So I have selected the woods that I'm going to use. I've got like a collection of sticks that are the 9 sacred woods. Now I'll talk about those a little bit. There's oak and holly. Holly and the oak are the green man. So when you see the green man, he has oak leaves or he has holly leaves, and they fight each other. So in the winter, the holly king rules, and then he will fight with the holly king at winter solstice and summer solstice, and then they will swap. So the holly king slays the oak king at midsummer and then takes rule, and then at winter the oak king slays the holly king and will rule for that half of the year. So we've just swapped over because it was recently the summer solstice. Holly king is now ruling. So the holly and the oak are, you know, kind of old staple mythology woods, and obviously we know that they're strong, and like the holly's there to make us reflect. So if you walk through a forest where there's holly, it's evergreen, so it's always there. So it's about always being there and being eternal, living eternally. So it's often associated with Christ, the crown of thorns, and the blood, the berries being his blood. But also when you see the light hit a holly tree, it really reflects like it's water. It looks like it's wet. So it's about reflecting and thinking and considering. And it used to be used to protect animals. So it used to be used as like a hedgerow to stop people from being able to steal animals. But also the berries are great for the birds, and the leaves are toxic for humans, but for animals they're like echinacea. Like they're a really wonderful herbal remedy, and cows and horses and goats and things will naturally just eat holly as a way of protecting themselves. And holly leaves are only spiky once they've been eaten. So a tree that's not had any plant kind of go for it will have smooth leaves, and it's only once it's been nibbled by an animal that it will start to grow spikes. So it's also about protection, and but only when necessary. So like not being over violent, but like, you know, only doing what the force that's needed. So that's everything that you can learn from the holly. The oak is the British oak. You know, it's like the heart of England. You know, and it's like whenever you think of like Robin Hood or someone like that, they'll always be living under an oak tree. Like the oak represents the essence of this land, and so it's kind of like our heart tree. There's holly and oak, then there's hazel, which grows dead straight, so that was always coppice, so that was wonderful for using for wands and staffs. So this was a druid wood that was used for these things, as was rowan, because again that grows long and straight, and they are sacred trees. Then there's the weeping willow, with which you can make baskets, and it's called weeping willow because it looks like it's weeping, but also the impact that it has to work with it it makes you very emotional. It brings out the emotion. So there's some sort of there's an emotional connection with Willow as well. Then there's Yew, which is the magic tree that you'll find in all the churchyards around the UK, and it's the only living thing that could live forever. Technically it could live forever, and we have trees in the UK that are like over 2,000 years old, and it grows from the inside out. So it keeps growing out, so it's about rebirth and reincarnation, because it keeps, so normally a tree would grow with rings outwardly like that, the yew tree goes in and out. So it could keep going. There's no reason for it to ever stop. They do sometimes die, but what's interesting is the yew trees that you find in the churchyards are all older than the churchyards. So the churches were built by the yew tree. The yew tree wasn't planted in the churchyard. So they were sacred trees and sacred locations before the church was built there. Then you also have Alder, which has both masculine and feminine reproductive organs on the same tree. So that's about like the fool and that betwixt the two. Elder, which is Mama Elder, and she heals us. So elderflowers and elderberries are good for you and will stop you from getting ill, and a really useful medicine for what's happening in the world at the moment with coronavirus. You shouldn't burn elder, it's toxic wood. It will, quite a few of them are toxic, but when you do have a sacred fire, you burn them. But Mama Elder you don't burn, she's the one that you don't. And then we also have Birch. Now Birch is a pioneering plant. And so whenever there's been a forest fire, it'll be the first trees that you see to grow. And I mean, they look magical. They look like fairy trees and are beautiful, but they also are about new beginnings. So these are the woods. So I've collected bits of all of these, but I have one here that I have selected to use for the wand that I'm making today. And I'm making this one for my goddaughter Nell, who is a beautiful being and has had to go through quite a lot of change. They were living in Ethiopia until recently, and then with everything that's been going on, got sent back to the UK, and I've had to leave their lives behind. So she's had quite a lot of disruption. So this is for you now. So here is your lovely wand, and it's yew tree. And this particular yew tree, I've also made one for myself as well, which I'll show you in a moment. This yew tree is particularly sacred to me. It's 2,000 years old, and it's in a churchyard in Wilmington, which is a village just outside of Brighton. Hang on, that one's a bit more. So this yew tree sparked a whole play, which then was turned into a novel called Sisterhood. And it's because I went with some wonderful women to stay in a Airbnb near this churchyard. It was all just coincidence. That happened to be an Airbnb that we went and stayed in that could fit all of us in. And we knew that we wanted to make a play called Sisterhood, and that's all we knew. And when we got there, my mentor said to me, "Oh, there's an amazing churchyard down the road. We should go there." And as we were walking there, she said, "Yeah, don't worry about coming up with the play. Like, the play is trying to tell itself. We just have to let it come through. Like, we just have to be a channel for it." And when we got to the churchyard, we saw this incredible yew tree, and it's just beautiful. And it was held up with metal chains and walking sticks, and just looked so ancient. It was absolutely beautiful. And we instantly climbed it and got involved, and it was beautiful. And then we went into the church, and there was this old stained glass window that had lots of beautiful butterflies and bees in it, but it had been smashed during an arson attack and then recreated. And this time, when it had been fixed with a phoenix in it, showing that it had resurrected from the flames, which is, so it was beautiful. It was a beautiful window with a phoenix added in. And we were sat there, and there was this like afternoon golden hour light kind of shining through onto all of the women that were there. There was about like 7 of us. And we sat in silence, and at one point my mentor said, you know that if people were accused of a crime in a village, the church was often the only like kind of lockable building that was around. So this would be where like you would lock up criminals and prisoners and stuff. So if someone was accused of witchcraft, then they'd be locked up in the church overnight. And we all sat there for a bit, and we were like, that's the play. The play should be about three women locked in a church who are 20, 40 and 60, so it's like the Virgin Mother and Crone, and they know that in the morning they're going to face their trials for witchcraft. And so that became the play of Sisterhood, and in it we refer to the yew tree outside in the churchyard, and so the whole thing was set in this space. And this is a twig from the yew tree, and it's extremely strong. It's really strong wood, and it's what longbows used to be made out of, because it's so strong you can really pull back on it. I mean, it's crazy. It feels so strong. So you've got a nice strong wand here. What we're going to do is I'm going to put some clay around it. Now I'm going to use Milliput, this stuff. So it's epoxy, what is it called? Epoxy resin? Is that what they're called? Where you mix the two things together and then it makes the glue. So I'm going to mix them together now. Now what I want to do before that is, because once I start using the clay, my fingers are going to go terracotta. I'm going to pull a rune, because I'm going to inscribe a rune on the wand, and I'll also do some sigil work, some sigil magic as well. This is for Nell, so this is a message from the goddess to Nell for the rune for the wand. So this is Hagelaz, the rune, and it represents hail. And with hail, it feels like it's hurting, but actually it's just melted water. So the lesson of Hagelaz is that whatever is happening, if ever anything feels difficult, like you're going through difficult times, is to remember it will not last. That you can deal with this, and it is just water. It just feels painful at the moment, but at some point it will melt and will become water again. So it also is a strong rune to have on a wand. It's like, it means, you know, you don't mess around with hail. So I'm going to inscribe the rune Hagelaz into this candle, my trusty sword, and I'm going to burn that while we're doing the spell, and I'll let it burn all the way down, and that will part of the process of imbibing this with magic. Now, if you don't have a set of runes, and you're not now, then you can also use this rune, and you just inscribe it into a tea light candle, anything you want. And then you have the rune inscribed into the candle, and then you light it and you let that burn all the way down. And once that's burnt all the way down, then your wand's spell magic has been completed. So I have her in front of me there, and so now I'm going to get the clay out. Now the thing is with this clay is it's actually quite hard to work with. I went into ceremony yesterday under the full moon to make my wand, because I realised also I needed to have, like, and here's one I made earlier, like Blue Peter, because it takes 2 hours for it to dry. But what I found with working with it is it's quite difficult to work with, because it kind of comes apart quite easily. You know, like it will crack apart from each other, from itself. So, but it does become really nice and hard. So I sort of think I prefer Bimo personally, but I do like the finish of this because it has a nice, it looks like leather. So we can make it look like you've got a leather piece on it. So you mix the two together. So you've got these two different bits of clay, and then you break off equal parts and squish them together until there's no, like, it's become one. You can't see that there's any streaks of the different types of clay in there. Yeah, I find with FIMO you're able to do a bit more detail with it. Yeah, this I think is a little bit hard to use. But with all these things, I think you just need to work with them more. And part of all of this work is it's about creativity. You know, this is why I love witchcraft, and what this is all about for me is I'm an artist at the end of the day. This for me isn't a belief thing. Like, I don't need to believe that Mother Earth exists. I'm definitely sure she does. I don't even need empirical evidence. I just, you know. So here we are on Mother Earth, and she definitely is not happy right now, and she definitely needs our love and for us to change the way that we're living. So for me, witchcraft is about encouraging people to fall in love passionately with Mother Earth, because I think part of the problem with environmentalism is it's a bit the stick. You know, you're like, do the recycling, sort your stuff out, stop driving your cars, blah blah blah, which is all true and it's fair enough. But I think that there's also some carrot that can be found in falling passionately in love with Mother Earth. If you're passionately in love with her, then you don't want to hurt her. And witchcraft is all about worshipping and revering nature. And she's a mistress that never stops giving. Like, you don't, oh, I know all about nature now. That's never, ever, ever. No one's ever said that, ever. Like, you will never know all of her secrets. You will never know everything about her. So she's literally the best mistress in the world. Like, first of all, you start learning to name the trees, and then you start to learn about their parts and what they do in the different seasons. And then you find out that they're like whole colonies of life, like they're host to all of these different insects and fungi. And then you find out that they're communicating through the mycelium network under the ground, and that they have emotions. So like all the things that it's like the, what is it, 7 things that say whether you're alive or not. It's like they breathe, they eat, they communicate. Like, you know, they're basically, it's very, I think there's very much a case beginning to form saying that they are sentient. They are able to communicate with each other. They have like an internet under the ground where they transfer information. So if one tree gets attacked by fungus, then they communicate with the other trees and let them know, and then they start to put out antibodies that will protect them from the fungus that is attacking. They release pheromones and chemicals into the air to pass on information as well. And when you look in tree time, like slow time, forests, they move. So forests move. So like an individual tree isn't like an ant and is going to get up and walk, but the forest will move. So as the climate's changing, forests are like moving north if they want to be in colder climates, for example. So they move, they communicate, they've got the internet, they have family. So you can tell which trees are related to each other because they'll be looking after each other, they'll be feeding each other. You have trees that want to be loners, that like, even though they're part of the family, will just be like, no, I don't want anything to do with you, and will choose to be loners. So you have different personalities. It's like, you know, it's amazing. It's amazing. So all of this is about connecting with Mother Earth, feeling more inspired and in love with her. And then all of it is about creativity, and that's part of how the universe works. So creation and destruction, which is the feminine and the masculine, is why you need to have both, because the feminine creates life and is the creative energy, and the masculine is the destructive energy. And when you look at toddlers, you know, it's like the little girls are playing with dolls, and even when you've brought them up to be sort of gender neutral, they will always be drawn to babies and dolls and nurturing life and looking after life. And boys, no matter what you do, no matter how much you encourage them not to be like it, they just want to smash all the stuff and like try and kill themselves by like jumping in the stream or whatever. And it's just I mean, there's also obviously people that are more masculine and feminine within, you know, so that it's not a rule, but there is a tendency, and we need those energies. You need winter and summer, because if you just had continual growth, which is what capitalism is trying to do, to say that we're just going to continually grow forever, that doesn't work. It's just not going to work, and it's going to end up being a massive destructive energy in the end. Whereas if you work in a cyclical way, where you allow for little death every winter, a little death, if you're a woman and you bleed, then when you bleed, it's a little death. and then you come up and there's like the ovulation and the summer and abundance and life, and you give birth, and then you let things die again. And it's the cycle of life, it's the cycle of our monthly cycles, it's the cycle of the seasons, it's the cycle of a day. You know, the whole cosmos is created in this way. So if we're able to work with that cyclical nature, it's just it's beneficial. And I've started working with cyclical time, and I've been doing that for like a couple of years now, where I let myself die with the dark moon and with my periods, and I just let myself die. And it just means that I'm allowed to chill out, I'm allowed to have that downtime, whereas we live in a world that's kind of like, just keep going, keep going, keep going. And you're like, no one's going to applaud you at the end for like having worked your butt off. No one is going to be there at the end of your life going, oh, well done, you never took a sick day, really amazing, yeah, really good. I mean, they might say it like at your retirement thing right at the end, might say it at your funeral, but like, they're not going to be saying it as you're going along. So letting yourself rest, being idle, not doing, is actually a really revolutionary thing. Taking your time, being slow. So what I'm doing is I'm going to make this into a long wiggly worm and wrap it round the handle, so then it will look a bit like a leathery handle. I'm going to use that for something else. I'm going to set some crystals into it as well, because I think my lovely Nell would like some crystals. So I'll wrap that around. And it's always good to work with the, work with the wood. Like, knots and things are beautiful, you know, it's like, keep them visible. And squeeze that in. I'll just make another wiggly worm. Next bit. So you can do whatever you want. I mean, like, I'm fairly creative, but I know that there are some people that can make much more beautiful things than me. Like, it's not my forte to make exquisite things. I'm a bit more shove it all together and hope for the best. I'm a bit of a cowboy, but yeah, if you're someone who is a creative, artistic person, you can really go to town with how you decorate your handles and what you use. So I'm using some crystals. They're old crystals that were part of a necklace that I've worn for years at the full moon as a full moon kind of talisman for when I've done magic spells, and it broke, which I was very sad about, and I was going to rethread it, but then I thought, actually, I'm going to use, because they're full of power, they're full of magic from me doing these magic ceremonies, I thought, actually, I'm going to put them in my wand for me and in my wand for Nell. But I've been talking and thinking a lot more about crystals recently, because I was talking to a group on Facebook about ley lines. There's a Facebook group dedicated to talking about ley lines, and because I'm going to be walking the St. Mary and St. Michael's ley line when I do my pilgrimage, and they're kind of the paths of energy, and we don't really know, like, so the St. Michael's ley line has got lots of St. Michael churches and sacred sites like Avebury, Stone Circle, and the Glastonbury Tor, which is a St. Michael Tower. St. Michael's Tower is on Glastonbury Tor. So all the way along this line, all the way from Penzance on the tip of Cornwall on the west coast, all the way to Yarmouth on the east coast in East Anglia, all along this, and it's a totally dead straight line. These things were all in alignment, like through, literally through the centre of Avebury, like, so it's a straight line. So it's like, I mean, it's quite crazy. It's like, how did they know that all those years ago? Because these are like thousands of years old, some of these sites, but they're definitely connected, and they definitely are called Michael. I mean, they're definitely on a straight line, and they're definitely called Michael. So like, what's that about, and how did they, without being able to have the kind of engineering stuff that we have today, like how were they able to know that that was a straight line all the way through? You know, all these things, just amazing. And was it all done on purpose and all the rest of it? But it's kind of a bit of a random coincidence that there's so much on a straight line called Michael. So it's called the St. Michael's ley line, and it's a line that would have probably been traversed regularly by people when Diggerland, which is when Europe and the UK was still connected, the piece of land between, which is now all underwater in the sea, in the English Channel, is called Diggerland. And so there would have been a walking route through from Europe to the UK at one point. And the route that is the St. Michael ley line is like, you know, walking from east to west. So there's this straight line walking down and through. But then there's also St. Mary's ley line that is running around it, but it doesn't do a straight line. It's like it wiggles. So it's like you've got a straight line and then you've got this serpent-y thing wiggling around it. So the St. Mary's churches are all around it, but not on the straight line. So it is strange. And in terms of like the way I see it and what that means to me is there's the linear energy and the straight line energy that's the masculine. And then you have the cyclical, the feminine. And it's this thing of getting a spiral going. And you often see in occult symbols the like wand or stick. It's normally a what are they called, things that scepter. A scepter is what kings and queens have. And then you have the snakes going around it, and that's a symbol for being a doctor. I can't remember which god. Is it Apollo? One of the gods has it as a symbol. Might be Aries. I think it's Aries actually. But it was taken on as the symbol for medicine. Right, so that looks like it's got like a leather handle around it, which I think is nice. It looks like it's a leather handle, and it's nice to like hold it in your hand because then you can make sure it's kind of melding into the shape of fingers. But I'm also then going to put some crystals in. So I'm going to make a shape that I'm going to then fill with crystals. And I like to put like a, with my practical one, I quite like the tip just being the way it is, because I use this for like poking the charcoal, for example, to encourage the incense to burn. So this for me is like a practical wand. Like I will use this for poking fires and doing things. But if you have like for Nell, I think she'd probably like a crystal in the end of it. So you can put a thing on the end that will be like a little bit of a magical thing on the end. I think it's important for the crystal and the wood to be touching. Oh yeah, so that's what I was saying, is that with the crystals on Mama Earth, you don't get crystals falling from the sky. To get a crystal, you have to dig into Mother Earth and basically like take from her, you know. And most crystals are not ethically sourced. They're dug in places like Africa where people are not being paid properly. In fact, half of them are probably not even getting a choice about whether they are doing this job or not, and they're not safe conditions. So this whole kind of hippie thing of having crystals, it's something to become aware of, that actually there is no like nice way of getting crystals really. And there are mines now that ethically source them. So if you're able to do your research and find out whether yours are ethically sourced, that's a good thing to do. But even so, it's pretty questionable really how ethical it is to be continually taking things out of the ground. So, you know, I'm reusing these ones that I got. And I think like with anything, you know, like even with like this is plastic, I'm not going to buy new plastic stuff. This is stuff that I've had for a while that's like for decorating parties and festivals and things with, and I will use it and use it and use it for, it's never going to get destroyed. It's going to be around for thousands of years. So just becoming aware of like where things come from and the effect that they have on Mother Earth is an important thing. So I've added a crystal onto the end of the wand. want to make sure that it's going to be sturdy because I don't want nail getting upset with it cracking off. And I want to make sure that it is touching the wood as well. And then I'm going to add some little kind of bits of crystals from, there's some smaller bits from the necklace, and I'm going to kind of encrust the end with the smaller bits. Yeah, with all these things, it's just becoming more and more aware, and you haven't got to feel bad. It's not about feeling bad for what you didn't know about, you know, like we're learning, and it, you know, it's the same with everything. I hear this a lot with the Black Lives Matter movement at the moment, that you're going to make mistakes, you can't get everything right, but it's about having the willingness to learn and not just be like, oh, well, I don't know about that stuff and I don't want to, because I don't want to have to admit my own ignorance, or that I might have been wrong in the past, or I've done something wrong. Just like, it's a really human trait to do that, to pretend that you're in the right because you don't want to have to face or deal with being in the wrong, you know, and it's a very human trait. But actually, the crucifix should be your, the question mark should be your crucifix. So think of the question mark as your magic symbol. Always question, always be willing to learn and discover new things and be proved wrong, because way awesome, you get to be even more awesome than you already are by growing and receiving extra wisdom. Hurrah. Today I got made into a better person because I learned something that I didn't already know. So I've encrusted the end with crystals. And then what will happen is when this resin dries, there we go, and there's like a whole bunch of crystals on the end there. I don't think you can see it, but there are. Yeah, I'll get that into focus. I will make it look gold, so I'm going to put some of this stuff on it, which is called Rough and Buff. Where is it? There we go. Rub and Buff. So this makes things look like they're gold, and in Blue Peter fashion, here's one I made earlier. Now this has been sat on my altar since yesterday when I made it under the full moon. I'm now going to place this on the altar. Anything that gets placed on an altar becomes altered, and this it means that you're imbibing it with magic. I've just thought, actually, what I'm going to do before I put this on there is I'm going to engrave the rune Hazel into the wand. So if she's holding it like that, I want that to be visible for her looking at it. And then what we're going to do as well is design some sigils, which I'll do with you in a sec. Some sigil magic. So I'm going to inscribe the H, Hazel. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. And then I don't like things being too smooth, so I'm going to rough it up a little bit with my other wand. Give it a bit of a textured shape around the edges. And then once this has got gold over it as well, it will look even cooler. Yeah, so I'm kind of giving it a bit of a roughed up edge. Hazel. Awesome. Put one more crystal in there. Just because I'm pretty sure a 6-year-old's not going to complain about too many crystals. Let that go, stick you in there. And then touch more clay in there. Get this crystal in there. This is it. It's like teaching younger people about the importance of looking after Mama Earth, but also witchcraft is about female power. It's about connecting to and harnessing and being connected to the inner power of the feminine, you know, and that can be for men too. But you're connecting to the cyclical, so you've got to be honouring and respecting and in awe of the feminine, whether you're a female witch or a male witch, and teaches us to be strong, because, you know, men have the brute force. They've got the physical strength. Like, once you're pubescent, you're physically stronger than women, and there's a responsibility there to use that strength for good. But women have a strength as well, and a power that men will never be able to have. You know, like, we'll never be able to be as big and strong as the majority of men are. Men will never be able to magically push human beings out of their bodies. Like, we make humans. So it's pretty bloody epic. And yeah, it is definitely magic. I mean, I've gone through the whole process of trying to force it to happen. I did IVF for 6 years and it never worked. And you know, it's like, you can do the whole process, you can do the whole thing of like getting an embryo in you and making that all happen. We got as far as that, but you can't make it then take, you know, and that's some other thing going on that you have no control over, and you can't control that bit. And that taught me a valuable lesson, which is that we are not in control. We can't control the universe. So even with this, like, using spells and using magic, it's a way of kind of giving yourself something to work with, you know, giving yourself strength. And for women, when we didn't have the physical strength that men have, but what we do have is this magical strength that, you know, would also help protect us. And if you're like an old woman on your own in a house where anyone could come and rob you at any point, being a bit scary and witchy is basically all you've got. And then one day someone decided that that meant that you should be able to get burnt alive for it or hung, and that's when we started having problems. So what we think of as witchy is actually just strong female doing what she can to protect herself without having the muscles to do it. Now we see all of that as being witchy behaviour, but actually what else was an old woman on her own meant to do, other than be able to kind of use psychological warfare with cursing and such like. But, you know, you have cursing, and then you also have, and I'd never curse anyone. It's, you know, there's that saying of whatever you put out, you receive threefold. And that's totally true. You point the finger, 3 fingers point back. So you only put out what you want to receive. But it does strengthen you with your intentions, your, you know, focus. So if you set intentions each month and choose what you're going, you know, what your focus is for the month, then then it just helps you move forward. Cool. So I've got a little crystal on there as well now, and I've got my crystal-y end. I'm happy with this, and the rune. So now I will place that on the altar, and like I say, anything that goes on the altar becomes altered. So that's going to be receiving the magical power. The candle is also burning down in honour of it. And here is one I made earlier, Blue Peter fashion. So I encrusted the end of this with crystals and created like a kind of leathery handle bit at the end and a crystal at the end. And so now I'm going to, I mean, I actually quite like it like that, because it kind of goes with the colour of the wood, but, and it feels really good. It dries really nicely, this stuff. It's quite hard to work with, but it dries nicely. So I'm going to try this rub and buff. I'm going to try this rub and buff for the first time. And I've got a cloth that's like a just dishcloth thing. I don't know where I put it. Where have I put it? No. Well, I'll just use some tissue. I've got some tissue. But yeah, I think you want really, ideally, a kind of dishcloth thing. I brought one in with me, but I don't know where it is. So let's see. You just apply to most surfaces, polish with cloth, clean with mineral spirits. A few loose crystals there. So I'm going to add a bit. I'll start on the end here where the crystals are. Oh yeah, you've got to pop it open. Yeah, cool. So it looks like gold, sort of gold paint. Cool. And then take some tissue and just pop it on. Oh right, cool. And it looks like you don't need very much. Great. Yeah, you don't need very much. So yeah, little goes a long way. Awesome. And I'm going to take it off of the crystals. It's going to stick more to the clay. Great. This looks really good. Yeah, so it does what it says. So it kind of dries on and then you can kind of rub it off of areas and then really shine it up as well. This is awesome. Yep, great. Yeah, cloth would be better because the tissue's coming apart somewhat, but have a look. Yeah, this is good stuff. Look, so I've got a lovely golden finish now with the crystals poking through. That looks really good. Brilliant. So I'm just going to do a little bit more down here on the handle. Yeah, and I think the more you shine it, the more it will look like metal as well. So when I find the cloth later, I will give that a bit more of a buff. Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, that looks really good. And again, this is from the yew tree, the magical yew tree, that was the inspiration for Sisterhood the novel, which you can get on Amazon, and Sisterhood the play, which we took as a healing tour around East Anglia and performed in all the places where Matthew Hopkins, the Witchfinder General, tortured and executed witches. Yeah, I'm making a bit of a mess here with the tissue, so I would advise using a cloth for this process. So now I'm starting to think what will be the sigil spell that we're adding on. So with a sigil, you're basically creating a circle and hiding a spell within it. There's different ways you can do sigil magic. There's not one set way. And my colleague priestess Megan, who you will meet on some of the other programs, does a slightly different thing, which I really like, with the sigil magic, where it's about you forgetting what the spell is. So it's about you like just letting go of it, basically, so it gets kind of offered up to the heavens, and the heavens take it and deal with it, which I really like. That's a good way of creating it, and I'd never heard that before till she did that with us the other day. What I use the sigil magic for is to create, like, to hide the spell within it, so you know that it says whatever it says, but no one else looking at it is going to know. And I use it to, like with Megan's one, it's about always kind of getting rid of it, like you burn it. It could be for an intention, or it could be for something you want to let go of, but you get rid of it. Whereas when I'm putting a sigil on a wand, it's not to get rid of it, it's to cast the spell into the wand. This is amazing. Yeah, so it all looks golden, and yeah, that's great. Yeah, and when I find the cloth, I'll buff it even more, make it even more goldy. So now I have this awesome wand. It's looking really good. I'm really pleased with that. So what is the sigil? Now, sometimes personally, since doing the IVF stuff, I basically only work with the unknown now. I'm not interested in what I've got to say. There's my thinking, which is my thin king, who thinks that they have all the answers and knows everything. And he's like, oh yeah, well, what you want to do for your wand is you want it to be like, meh, 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 meh. It's like, I'm really not interested in what my thinking has to say. It's really useful in the outer world. It'll protect me from, you know, the world, protect me from the trumps and the nonsense, and help me make decisions and choices. But when it comes to magic and inner world stuff, it doesn't have a clue, and it won't know how to do things. It will start to panic, in fact. And the more you put it at ease by letting it know that you're not, you know, sneaking off to do other things without it because you're going to kill it, like Cain and Abel. It's like he's Cain, and he's scared that, you know, he knows that he would kill Abel, that he kills his abilities all the time, but he doesn't want Abel to kill him. So you have to kind of put him at ease and let him know that that's not the intention, that's not what you're doing. And you do that by doing creative stuff as often as possible and just leaving him at the door saying, I'll be back, I'm going to be back, but you're not invited, because no, you don't know how to get up and do an improvisation or paint a painting or write a poem. It's got nothing to do with you. So me and Abel are going to go and do that, and I will be back, and we're not plotting to kill you. So it just, the more you do it, the easier it gets. Like, literally it does. I was a lot less creative when I was younger, and I was full of judgment and always judging what I was doing. And then basically through training, you know, and it's like just continually doing it. Like, meditation does get easier the more you meditate. Yoga gets easier the more you do it. But some days it's easier and some days it's harder. But like a spiral, you are always getting flexibler, or you're going deeper with your meditation. You are able to get more creative the more you do it, and just stop judging yourself and leave your thinking at the door. So trust that. I used to judge everything I did so much and not really enjoy it, because I was just giving myself a hard time the whole time. And then I realized that my thinking and my judgment just had nothing to do with it at all. So I like to ask the universe in pretty much all instances about what it wants from this. So you might know, and that's fine, you might know what you want your wand to be, like what power you want it to have. Like, this is, for me, it's got the magic of the Sisterhood yew tree, and the yew tree is about transformation, and transformation is my rune. So I've got this rune here, which is Ing, and it was the first rune I ever pulled, and Ing is masculine fertility energy. So it's like the inspiration of ideas, but it's the sperm, it's the seed. So it's like, you know, it's like a pop, it's like a piercing, it's like you're popping the balloon and you're making something new, you're making that life happen. You're like, I'm coming in, and we're gonna make our baby. So this is inspiration, Ing. It's the god Ing, a Norse god. And actually, when I do this pilgrimage in September, the thing that I've realized is I want to look at and explore more my masculine energy side, because I've actually gone in a whole circle with this. Like, I feel like I'm trans in that when I was born, I was absolutely sure I was a man. I always thought I was a man. And as a child, I was like, I'm a boy, I'm a boy. And I wanted to climb the trees higher than any of the other boys. And I wanted to like prove, always I was trying to prove that I was more of a man than the other men were. And it was like competitive and trying to be strong and like, and I didn't like women. I wasn't interested in them at all. And then I've been on a whole journey of like really getting into the feminine experience, almost like I'm like literally like I'm a what's the word, spy, you know, like from the male world. It's like, oh, I got given a woman's body. I'm going to go and see what it's like to be a woman. And it's literally like I've been on a trip learning and discovering about femininity and worshipping the goddess Mother Earth and learning to love the cyclical nature of my body, and like really have really got into the feminine thing. And when I started looking at doing the St. Michael's and St. Mary's ley line and realizing it's about the masculine and feminine, I realized that actually I've not done work on my masculine things. Like I know that my archetype is Aphrodite, which is the feminine, but I also know that my archetype is Ing. So I pulled this ring since I was a kid, and Ing is Norse, and it's also Odin and the Norse mythology are all very strong for me. Like I've been able to read and write runes since I was 8. Like I just learned to read and write them really young. So I feel like I've got some kind of like past life connection or something with runes and with the Norse culture. And I don't even know anything about the god Ing, even though it's been my rune since I pulled it when I was 13. I've never gone and like looked into him particularly. So I realized that part of my journey with the pilgrimage is going to be exploring the non-toxic masculine. Like, what is this masculine energy? Because actually I don't know it that well. I just sort of know the Donald Trumps and patriarchy, and I've kind of got that view of it. But actually how to get really inside the power of masculine without all the nasty side of things. So that's part of the journey I'm going on, and I've drawn Ing into this wand, and the fact that it's got the yew tree, and the yew tree is everlasting and it's transformation, and it's like, and it's also your grizzle, the tree of life in Norse mythology, with Midgard in the middle, and the heavens and hell like at the top and bottom. That's a yew tree, and so like the yew tree is this powerful, potent, magic tree, and this one obviously means a lot to me personally. But it's about transformation, and it's about like the inner and the outer. It's like these binary oppositions, the death and life, and like, yeah, bringing all of these things into a connection. You have the inner and outer, which is everything, which makes the infinity sign. And what we're trying to do is like flip that inner world and bring it to the outer world and be able to make things whole. And cultures like the Aboriginal culture, for example, like everything's sacred. Everything in their outer world is sacred because they flipped that inner world as part of it. And we can do that, and we're being called to do that. So that's all in this wand, and it's good to say all of this out loud while I'm holding it because I'm imbibing it with that power. So I guess, for me, actually, I think the sigil for this would be the infinity sign. Normally I'd write a spell and I would hide the spell within the circle, but actually I think what I should have is a circle with the infinity sign in it as my symbol for this. But I will still show you how to do a sigil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my symbol on here first of all as a sigil. I'm drawing the infinity sign, which is Lemmiscool, that's what it's called. And then I'm going to draw a circle around. So the Fool is the top of the tarot deck, and is the 0, which is when the inner and outer are one. Then you've reached enlightenment, and the enlightenment is the Fool. It's the beginning and the end of a journey, and it's the unknown. And the circle is, like I showed you when casting the magic circle, it's actually a ball. And within that ball is everything. there you go, I've drawn the infinity sign within a circle, and then I'm going to go over it with the gold pen just to make it a bit more magical. And so for Nell, so Nell has the Haglaz rune. So I feel like, oh yeah, well actually I'll do what, because that was me knowing just then. I just realised after me saying that I work with the unknown, but actually when I was talking about the wand, I realised that this was what should be drawn on here. But with now, I will let the cosmos choose, the universe choose. There you go. So I've like coloured that in with gold. So, and that looks great. I mean, that I'm really pleased with that. That's a complete wand. But let's let the universe choose for now. So we've got Haglaz as the rune protecting it, and then let's see what the cards say. So I'll use a tarot card. Oh, one fell out. Interesting. So this has come up like on all my readings of late, Prince of Discs. So the Prince of Discs is Earth, and it's, you can see like, you know, Taurus is an earth sign. You've got the kind of Taurus bull on there. So the disc is Earth, it's the physical world, and we've just had a Cancer full moon. And what this is calling upon is like practically, physically making things happen, like connecting with the earth, but like knowing that you've got to do things, you've got to be practical, you've got to plan. As a Capricorn, I'm all about, like, you know, you sort of think of the goat trying to get up the mountain, the goat always climbing up a mountain. It's like each step, one step at a time, like how are you going to get up this cliff, how are you going to get up this mountain. And it's like you need to like put these plans in place and do the work. So it's interesting that that's been pulled. And look in the background, there's lots of balls and circles, and you can see there's all the circles as well, which is interesting, seeing as that's what we were just talking about. So okay, so I got that, and then I'm also going to pull a Sassy She card, which I made by my teacher Lisa Lister. She's my kind of witchcraft mentor, and I'll add these cards back into the mix so that they could be pulled if they wanted to. Okay. Oh. And interestingly, that was the card that I just put there, so it obviously wanted to be pulled. Now this could look scary, it's darkness, but it's not. I'll read you it, but also then I'll show you what it means to me. I love this because the stuff that she's got on these things is brilliant. So what she says: oh yeah, we're going there. Being Omi and Zen is super cool, but there are times when we have to be in the shadows, practice our bitchcraft, and own our dark parts. Don't try to hide from the darkness, because it's in this place we really get to know our whole selves. If a situation has been making you feel powerless, or you think that your niceness is going unnoticed, you'll be starting to feel an uncomfortable feeling deep down inside, calling you to explore your dark parts. Go there. Own your strength. Own the moodiness. Know that you're capable of, know what you're capable of. Get strength from the shadows. It doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a woman who knows all of her parts. And I totally agree with this. Like, I spent a lot of time like kind of trying to like see how dark I was. Like, I really went there. I was like, you know, how dark am I? And I'm not. I'm not. I'm very cheeky. I'm very naughty, and I'm so open-minded. Like, it's ridiculous. Yeah, I really don't care who or what you do. Like, I mean, within, you know, as long as you're not hurting other people. But basically, as long as you're not hurting other people and it's do unto others as you have done unto yourself, literally knock yourself out with whatever weirdness you want. And the more conservative the world gets, the weirder I'm going to be. But I actually call myself, I'm a within my coven, I'm the dark witch. It doesn't mean I'm a dark witch. I don't practice dark witchcraft because I have no need to do that, and why would I? But I call myself a dark witch because I initiated myself on the dark moon. And I didn't even really, again, it's like I just let the universe lead. It was just when it happened, but it was the dark moon. And then when I looked into that more, it's like, actually, I know how to work with my darkness and my shadow self. It's not something that I fear. And I remember once seeing a sign outside a church that said, look into the light and then you will see. It's referring to looking into the light of God and then you will see. And I was like, if you look into light, you can't see a thing. It blinds you. What you actually want to do is have the light behind you and look into the shadows and look into the darkness, and then you will see. And I just thought that was really interesting. And I think we're taught to always try and be good and try and think of the light and try and like pretend that we don't have this dark place, these dark parts of ourselves. And actually it's not helping. That's part of this thing of like the world that we live in is just gone, it's falling apart. And part of the reason is because we're all pretending that the darkness isn't there. And if you notice with this card, she's got the raven, and the raven is Odin, who gave us the runes. So I feel a real connection with this. So this, for Nell, for her wand, is calling upon her to, you know, she's had a tough time and she's had to go through a lot of huge changes, and they're going to have brought up some horrible feelings and feelings of being powerless and all of these negative feelings that you're, you know, probably being encouraged to like pretend everything's okay. And just, you know, and also like you're in the middle of coronavirus and you're 6 years old and you can't go and play with other kids. It's like, this is a really difficult process that you're going through. So don't feel like you've just got to be the like nice, happy, light queen princess the whole time. You also have your darkness, and that you're entitled to that, and that's part of you. And it's like the yin and yang symbol. So actually, I feel like I want to do a yin and yang symbol on the card. It's got quite a yin and yang feel to it, this card. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do, because actually I think I could do a whole video on sigil magic. So I'm actually going to do that. There is a video on YouTube, the Luna Coven YouTube page, and there's a video on how to make a sigil. Because actually I feel like I've got to be true to what's happening here, and this is asking for the yin and yang symbol. And this Prince of Discs, the physical, you know, this is asking for like kind of practical, being practical and putting into action what you need to, you know, to make yourself happy. Like, what's the practical things that you want? So I'm going to find a place here where I can draw a yin and yang symbol on it. I'm going to put it there. It's going to be quite tricky. It's going to be really small. So I'm going to see what I can do. Oh, maybe I'll draw it on there. Yeah, I'm going to draw it on the clay because it's taking. Great. I love the yin and yang symbol. It's kind of got a bit overused in the 90s and went a bit out of fashion, but it's just such a perfect symbol. It's like balance between all these binary oppositions and the fact that there's a bit of light in the dark and dark in the light. So there's a saying that my other teacher, mentor, Jonathan Kay, who taught me fooling, he always says, are you an angel in the dark or a devil in the light? And I love that. Yeah, there's angels in the dark. You know, when you're in dark situations and dark places, these angels come through and are there for you. And, you know, as we know within the church community, for example, there can be devils within the light. There can be people doing awful things within these communities of light. So it's interesting that, yeah. There's a fly in here. I don't know if you can hear it. I wonder how he got in because he wasn't here earlier. Come to say hello. So, there we go. We've got a gold and black yin yang symbol on there, which looks great. Actually, that works really well on the clay, so that's useful to know that marker pens work really well on this clay. So there we go. So this is wet still, and I'm gonna let this dry. This is looking good. That's a nice wand. I'm really pleased with this. The gold works really well. That's great. So I'm gonna put these down on the altar, and I'm gonna then bless them with the elements and give them the power of the elements, and then we will be done. So begin with the north. So you always begin with the north, and normally you would face the directions when you do the when you call in the directions. I forgot to say that when we cast the circle, but because I'm facing the camera, I will always do it facing you. But here you have the salt, which represents the earth, and I take each of the ones. In fact, actually, I can throw it on them, but I won't be able to do it with the flames. Here we go. So I'm going to touch them with salt, the earth, so I imbibe them with the power of the physical world and all the strength to physically make difference in the world, the power and the magic of our guardians of the north. And then it's east, which is air. And for this, I'm going to use the prayer bowl, and so I will I've imbibed them with the power of the east, and the east and the communication, so the ability to transform people's opinions and ideas through your words, and for your words to have power and strength. And then the south, I'm going to use the prayer. This is the spell candle. It's getting quite low. And I'm going to run the ones through the candle. I'm using it on my one as well now, so that means you've filled my wand with your magic too. And this is giving it the magic of fire, of action, of masculine energy, of the ability to make change through your actions, physically doing things in the world. You have the power to physically make a difference. And then this moon water, which I blessed under the full moon last night, and it was Glastonbury Tor spring water. So this is really magical water, and it's in my beautiful bowl that my friend Ro gave me again. She gives me all the best things. And here I will sprinkle that over the wand, both the wands. This is the power of the inner world, which is really where the magic resides. The power of the unseen, hidden depths of the magical inner world. And I will leave them now on the altar. I'll leave this one here to dry and let this set, and then I will buff this with the gold as well. And so we are complete. And before you say goodbye to the directions and thank them, I'm going to just pour myself a little bit more rose tea, because we've finished our work now, and me and the directions and the goddess and the horned god and that betwixt the two have a little sip of tea and some strawberries. See, this is why being awake is so great, because the simple feast is one of the best bits of it. At the end of your ceremony, you always have a little feast. And some of them I will leave for offerings for the deities. And now I will thank everybody and then cut the circle. So beginning with that betwixt the two, thank you for being here with us today. And I really do see you as the thing that we're working towards, this place of balance. So thank you for inspiring me to sigil wands and imbibe them with your power. And thank you for being here today, and for the continuous journey that you take me on with the Fool and the Fooling. So thank you for everything. Thank you. And thank you to the masculine, who I'm realizing I need to get to know better, and I'm going to go and do my research on the god Ing and get to know this masculine part of myself. Who are you? What are you all about? How we can be masculine energy without it being toxic. Really celebrate that in the world. So thank you for being here with us today. Thank you. Thank you to the goddess, who, you know, everything is for, and for holding us on your beautiful planet and just looking after us and feeding us. Thank you for the strawberries and the raspberries and the rose tea, and for all your gifts. And thank you for the crystals that I've used in the wand. And I'm sorry that they were stolen from you. And thank you for your unconditional love and patience, because we don't deserve it, but we will endeavour to get better. Thank you. And we thank you, the physical world. So we thank the North. Thank you for being here. And yeah, I definitely feel your presence very strongly at the moment, and for that card that just was pulled, and how that has come up a lot under this Capricorn full moon. So feeling your request and hearing your request for us to really get going and be practical and to physically make a difference. You know, it's time to be in action and do things, not you know, it's all very well doing this inner work, but if you're not physically doing something with it, then it's all just glitter. And we need practical, on the ground, get your hands dirty work to be done. So thank you for your lessons. And thank you, the East, the air. Thank you for all the wisdom that's been shared, and the storytelling and the knowledge, and for all of the power that you're going to give to my darling Nell's words and to my words when we cast with our spells, with our magic wands. So thank you. Thank you to the fire energy, to the south. Thank you for being that rocket up the backside, making us do this work and be here. And thank you for your beautiful candle flames that guide us, and the candle that is going to fill our wands with magic. Thank you for, you know, you are the strength, the masculine energy, and thank you for your lessons. And I look forward to getting to know more about what you have to say. And thank you to the water, the west, the inner world, for all of the work that you are guiding me through. As a Capricorn, I'm shy away from emotions, and you teach me every day to be more emotional and more connected to my emotions, and for them not to be something to just ignore or accept that's just the way they are. Like with now learning to work with her darkness, we need to accept all the parts of ourselves and know that whatever it is you're feeling that keeps coming up, it's valid, and therefore it's a message. It's a message from your inner world requesting that you physically change things in the outer world. So I'm hearing this more and feeling you more, and thank you, and thank you for the magic you're going to imbibe the wands with. So now I'm going to cut the circle, starting in the north, and pull all the energy of the ball down into the sword, like Athame. So the circle is now open, but never broken. Merry meet and merry part and merry meet again. Merry meet and merry part and merry meet again. Merry meet and merry part and merry meet again. Thank you for being here, and thank you for watching. And I'm going to be dropping this down into a YouTube video that will be a bit shorter. So that will be going up on the Luna Coven YouTube channel later on today. And yeah, thank you ever so much for supporting us. If you are able to, if you're financially able to, we have a Patreon account called the Luna Coven Patreon. We're just creating content for free. We're putting it out there. We want to help make the world a more beautiful and creative place, more extraordinary and inspiring place. And we want to encourage the like empower women, and also to encourage people to adore and fall in love with Mother Earth on more deeper levels. So that's the intention of our work. If you like that and you think that's a good thing, then please support our Patreon channel, and you'll get extra content and goodies and discounts on our workshops and paid for ceremonies. So thank you ever so much, and I hope you do make wands and that you enjoy using them. So blessed be, and I shall see you again soon.